Good evening once again. Welcome to Big O Entertainment LLC Street Talk No Chaser. We have a very special guest with us today, uh, helping us understand violence behavior in youth versus the court system. We have Judge Carpenter here to entertain a lot of our questions. We also have on the panel other special guests, Miss Paula Hudson, Kim O'Neill, George Babb, and the moderator himself, Johnny O'Neill. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening.
Okay, Judge, we want to start this thing off. First of all, tell us a little bit about you and your role in the court system and your venture. How did you get there?
Well, just prior to becoming the municipal court judge for the city of Vicksburg, I was an assistant district attorney with our DA's office here in Vicksburg, and we covered three counties: Warren County, Sharkey County, and Issaquah County. And so I did that for about nearly 11 years. And prior to that, I actually practiced. I did defense work, and I've also done plaintiff's work. So I've done both sides of the coin on that. And then I worked with our drug court team as a public defender with the drug court team, helping people who had drug addictions, who also had charges in the system. And after that, that's when I became an assistant DA. And from there, I became a municipal court judge. And I've been judge now since December of 2018, and my first day on the bench was January 2nd of 19. And pretty much what I do as a municipal court judge, municipal court judges hear misdemeanor matters. So, there's misdemeanors, there are felonies. The misdemeanors, the maximum penalty is up to $1,000 fine and 1 year in jail. In contrast to felonies, where you could pay up to $1 million in fines and serve up to life imprisonment in prison. So those are the primary differences between the felonies and the misdemeanors. Again, as municipal court judge, I handle misdemeanors. So in my court, I can hear anything from traffic offenses all the way up to various crimes on the misdemeanor level. And in addition to that, I also have the responsibility of setting bonds, criminal bonds for criminal defendants who have committed felony cases. So that's pretty much a little background on myself and what I do daily as municipal court judge for the city of Vicksburg.
Okay, I have one other question. What college did you attend and law school did you attend?
Okay, well, for undergrad, I attended the University of Southern Mississippi. I received a BS degree in criminal justice there. I then attended Mississippi College and received a master's degree in political science there. And then I went to Mississippi College School of Law, and that's where I received my law degree.
You have a well diverse background in getting to where you started and where you are today. I would like to read up about that. You probably could write your own book and give a lot of advice that way. What I like to do, though, is get into a question for you. How do you deal with out of control teens and youth adults?
Well, in municipal court, unlike youth court, of course, in youth court, those courts are designed to handle cases that are specifically for the youth. And so every single day they're dealing with youth. Whereas in my court, I deal with youth and adults. However, unfortunately, I'm beginning to deal with more youth, many more, especially as I mentioned earlier in setting criminal bonds. The defendants who come before me who've committed felony cases now, they're getting younger and younger. I had about a month ago a 14-year-old to come before me. And not only are they coming before me on felonies, but they're violent offenses now. Anything from shooting into a vehicle, to shooting into a house, to committing murder. that's the range. And I can remember when I was an assistant DA, when I first started in 2008, I remember that I would say the age range for defendants who committed violent offenses, I would say during that time, it was maybe from 20 to the late 40s, 50s, perhaps. But now, as I mentioned, a 14-year-old was just before me not long ago. So that they're getting younger and younger, more violent offenses at younger ages. And that is certainly alarming, and that's concerning to me. It is.
Okay, what we're gonna do, we don't have any questions at this moment. Any questions before I pass it over to the moderator?
You know what? Let me say one thing real quickly though, because your question was, because I realized I gave you a little bit of background, but I don't think I really answered your question. Your question is, how do I handle them? And again, in posting bonds, I have no choice, unfortunately. They're charged with a particular. I have to give them a bond that I believe is a reasonable bond, considering the nature of the offense, the maximum penalties that could be afforded in that particular case. I have to look at all of those things, and so I have to handle that. There's no way around that. Now, with the younger people who come before me on other cases, like say for instance, being caught in possession of marijuana in a vehicle or a weapon in their possession, that's a little different. I tell people all the time that I as judge, I believe it's my responsibility to do more than just assess a fine, give them some days in jail and assess a fine, because that's not helping anything. That's not helping anything. What I try to do is I try to get to the root cause of it, if I could. And it's a lot of times it's a very deep thing. It's not a surface thing. It's a deep thing. So I can't do that in just a few minutes time that person is before me. But I have to kind of assess where I think they are, and say, for instance, if I think that they may be dealing with some anger issues or some matters like that, then in addition to maybe giving them some time in jail, assessing them a fine, then I'm also ordering them to complete some type of anger management class. Some young people come before me on, let's say, a speeding ticket. Well, rather than just assess them a speeding ticket fine, I also require them to write an essay. And if they can't write it, they come before me at a later date, and I want them to tell me some of the things, because I want them to research it first. I want them to go in and tell me, for instance, give me some of the dangers of speeding. Okay. And so then the responsibility on them is to go and look that up. And then I give them a later date to come back. Then they either bring me that essay, or they're gonna come before me and tell me. Either way, they're gonna tell me what they learned. Because I always tell them, I'm not just giving you this just to give it to you. I want you to learn from it and then apply what you learn. So that's how I handle the younger people in my court who have not been charged with felonies.
Wow, that is deep, and if they don't learn from that, they actually they're learning. You're giving them a pattern to where they can understand their offense. I'm not going to say a crime, their offense of their violation, to where they will be able to actually grow from it.
Right. So everybody makes mistakes.
Everybody
makes mistakes.
And whether they learn from their mistakes is totally different.
That's true too. And at the end, it's all up to them. We can only give them so much help, but at the end of the day, they have to learn from it and apply what they've learned. That's the only way it's going to work for them. They have to do it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. We're going to move on to a different subject, Judge, if you don't mind.
Right.
What are some signs of our kids having anger issues that you see in the court system?
Well, I see, because there are two things that have popped in my mind. There are some young people who come before me, and you could see and hear the anger in them. You really can. But then there's some more. There are other times when, let's say, a person comes before me, and again, I'm going to go back to when someone has been charged with a felony. A young person has been charged with a felony, and I have to set them a bond. Well, I'll give you an example. A couple of months ago, there was a 15-year-old who came before me on a charge of murder. And I asked them, if I read the rights, asked them if they understood the rights, and the whole time they were saying yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and they were standing like it was nothing. And then when I gave them a bond of $2 million, they were still saying, oh, okay, yes, ma'am, and I'm thinking to myself, and that happens quite often. I'm thinking, do they really get this? Do they really get what's happening? You know, do they really get it? It's like they get it. They don't get it. You know, and that's what's unfortunate for me to see them. Where they just don't understand. I would rather them. I would rather feel and see some type of emotion from them, but to stand there like it's nothing, I mean that's really concerning to me. But quite often, the younger people, um, I well, the thing is, oftentimes when they come before the court now, they're they say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. They're polite, they're cordial, because they know they can't be they can't say exactly what they want to say and how they want to say it in the courts because they're afraid of what getting jail time or something like that. So they're going to come to me a little bit differently than they would come approach a police officer, for instance, or some other adult. But yet still, as let's say, for instance, I have a young person and they're at trial for something. Well, inevitably, as they're testifying, I can tell, I can hear whatever anger is inside of them. I can hear it, just as we all can. We can hear, if we're having a conversation with a young person, you can hear that anger in them. And oftentimes, we could ask ourselves, well, where in the world is that coming from? Especially when it appears that they come from a good home and all of that. But then if we delve into it, because there's so many different layers, if we really pull back those layers, we'll see that there's just so much, oftentimes there's so much hurt and disappointment at the root of it, and oftentimes it's something that happened when they were younger. Because I can tell you that's another thing I saw when I was an assistant DA working those types of the felony cases, because in those particular instances, because I was the assistant DA, I had an opportunity to speak with like the victims and get a background of not only victims but the parents, let's say, of the defendants, and I get a background of that child. And oftentimes, unfortunately, and not to knock a female, for instance, who's raised the child all by themselves, because it takes a lot of courage and determination to do that. But oftentimes these young people are coming from, one parent homes, or homes where there's been a history of either drug addiction or alcohol abuse, or the mother or father putting their spouse or significant other ahead of the child. I see that so often, and it's just a cycle. It's a cycle.
Man, we got to break that cycle.
Yeah, we do. We really do.
And then also, we have babies having babies, so they don't know how to tell a child, because they're still a child themselves,
right?
How to act and how not to, or how to deal with their anger issues.
That's right. That's right. Because they're modeling. Their parent is modeling what they were taught, or what they saw. What they saw, how their parents treated them, or their adult relatives and people who were supposed to be important people in their lives. Sometimes we even see that may include teachers. We have teachers, a lot of wonderful teachers out there, but unfortunately, some people have had bad experiences with teachers, at young ages. We have to remember that, and I know we've heard oftentimes that, there's power in words. There's truly power in it. And people, those kids, they remember stuff. If you tell a child that, You're not going to amount to anything, or you just like your dad. I had problems with your dad when he was coming through, kind of thing. They remember that stuff, and you're already knocking them down before they have a chance to grow and to show you what they can do. Words really do hurt.
I see Miss Paula over there. She has some concerned looks. She might have a question for you, Judge, on that. Miss Paula, you can unmute, please.
Oh, I feel and think that Judge Carpenter is correct about the family stuff and with the children, and also with what Johnny said about children having children, and it's very disturbing, and because now your 10-year-old is a 12-year-old when I see him in counseling, and she's right. When you talk to them about their issues, they look at you just like, okay. And then you kind of left there, well, where do I go from here?
Right.
Because they act like it's nothing. And I see it being a very severe and major problem, but they don't. Even when talking to their parents, they talk to their parents like they're talking to another peer.
This is a reminder.
Exactly. Hold on just a minute.
And for everybody that's tuning in, Miss Paula is a licensed clinical social worker.
Oh, yeah. And I see a lot, because when I was 10 years old, I didn't know anything also about, being bisexual, and even when in being a therapist, we're having to change a lot of things that we were taught. And, and to keep a straight face when you're talking to a 10-year-old about her sexual activity and all the deviant behavior, it's kind of rough.
But that's when I would say that, a lot of the things that kids are doing, they're acting out. They looking for that attention. My oldest son, this is what he does. These kids that in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, just like Judge Carpenter has there in Mississippi, when they're these teenage kids that they get being put out of school, they have to go to these schools that he's a counselor, he has to teach in to try to get them back in shape, to try to put them out to be productive into the system, or they going up to the road or up on the other side of the road and do their time in jail. So, he talks to me about that a lot. He said, Dad, it's kind of hard, but you don't want to see that kid going down the wrong path, but it's up to them. They have to be willing to make that change. If they can't make that change themselves within themselves, understand the wrong that they did, that's another set of behaviors we're gonna teach them, and those behaviors that they're gonna learn is not gonna be from the schoolhouse; it'll be at a jailhouse.
Right.
Okay, Judge, we're gonna move on because we can talk about that subject for days upon days upon days. I got another one for you. It says, who pays for the child when they're placed in custody of the court system or in jail?
Well, it depends on what system, when I was system, but what court they're in. Let's say if it's a young person who has committed a felony, then the county, like here in Vicksburg, for instance, all defendants who have committed felonies who are waiting to bond out on their bond, they are housed in the county jail. So therefore, county is paying for that. If it's let's say if it's someone that that have come before me, and I've given them some time in jail, and then they're supposed to come back to me once they're done to do whatever, to take care of their fines. Well, while they're in jail, sitting out those days in jail, they're actually that's being paid by the city. So it just all depends. Or like here in Vicksburg, if it's a justice court matter, well, that's handled through the county. So the county would pay for that. So it really just depends on what court system You're talking about it's the same as if a defendant who has already pled, let's say if they've pled to a felony, pled guilty to a felony and they were ordered to serve some time in prison. Well, in that particular instance, depending on what prison system they're in, let's say they're in a correctional facility here in the state, then our state pays for that. So it just depends on what court and what level they are.
Okay. Is there a time where the parent has to pay for their child being in custody?
No, not in Vicksburg. Not in Vicksburg. I am aware that happens in other places, but no, not here. Let's say, for instance, if a child has gotten in trouble and they were picked up and they're in the detention center here and they're waiting for their hearing before the youth court judge. Well, the parent is not paying for that child to be housed there. Now, I don't know if it may ever go in that direction here, but they're not paying for them to be while they're in custody in the detention center. They're not paying for that. But there are instances though where parents are being held accountable to pay for some of the wrong that their young person has done.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go ahead to the next question.
What are your views? What are the court views on youth violence? And what can we do as a community to help the justice system?
Well, of course, every court is different, the way they handle the issues that we're having with young people. We each try to try new and different things that we think could help. But I know that overwhelmingly all of us can agree, and all of us judges, no matter what level we are on, we all agree that we certainly have a problem, not only in our community. Our city just mirrors what's going on in the nation today. There's certainly a problem with teen violence, and there was a time when people would say, well, if they just had more places to go, more places to go to, and be a part of and be active in, and that's true. That's true. That would help, but that's certainly only a part of it. There has to be some accountability of parents, and of young people. I mean adults who are either responsible for that young person or who just has some type of influence in that child's life, whether that's a teacher, whether that's a relative, like an aunt, uncle. We all have young people, whether it's a niece, nephew, cousin, we have them. And just because it's our, second or third cousin, don't mean that we don't have any type of responsibility. It's our family. And not only family, these young people need our help, and we have to show them that we care about them. We have to, because I know that's where, going back to when we talked about earlier about anger issues, mm-hmm. I know that's where part of that is coming from, because they are not feeling loved. They're just not. They're not feeling loved, and they're not feeling valued. And I'm not talking about trying to make it easy for them or trying to sugarcoat things or let them get their way or whatever. But I mean just showing them care and concern, and oftentimes just being, firm with them is part of showing care and concern for them. Or if they have an issue, instead of talking at them, you're talking to them. You have a conversation with them. Now I'm not talking about when they're doing something wrong. I mean, because, there are times that you're going to have to say, look, this is what you're going to do, and this is how you have to do it. And you just have to do this, whether you like it or not.
Sometimes you got to be direct with it.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you do, but at the same time, we have to remember that the young people are still people. They are people. They have feelings just like we do. And if the way all of us are talking right now, if we can talk about things and discuss things, if we with each other. You ask me a question, I answer it, and and then you give me your opinion, and the way we're kind of going back like that and communicating, then we can do the same thing with them. Because and that's something else too. Because I don't know if you all notice it now, but one of the things I noticed is that it seems that our young people have a problem with communicating. Okay, and I mean even the basics of if you ask them a question, they're real low. The voice is real low, like they're not sure about what they, and or they kind of half answer you and not really caring to think about what you're asking.
Yeah.
That's communication. And so where is that coming from? Why do our young people have a problem with communicating? And I would submit we fail to do our part to communicate with them. So that's my take on that.
Or you get that what we call nonverbal communication. You get the looks in the face, or the facial expression, the shrug of the shoulders, or other gestures that they give you physically.
Right.
That means they're not either retaining, or they're not understanding, or there's a problem. That's when in my household, that's when we do the tag team. You don't have to talk to me, but you can talk to your mom.
Right.
Right. But
right.
The parents, whether it's a single household or a parent with a mother and a father, they have to understand their role too. They got to be able to get to that child to where they can educate their child. First of all, let them know, I'm not your friend. I'm your mother and your daddy, but I love you.
Right.
And what I want you to do is walk that straight and narrow, and let's see, can we be a productive part in society?
That's right.
A lot of parents don't do that, I remember when the street lights better not come on and blink twice before you got in the house. We had to understand it.
Right.
That was expressed to us, you need to be at a certain time, not today. And parents played a big part, a better part in their kids' lives. A lot of these things won't be happening.
That's right.
I'm not saying it's going to erase it, but a lot of these things can be curbed.
That's true. That's definitely true.
Does any of the panel have any input on that subject?
It seems to me also too that our parents today are either overworked or not working, or they're absent from home. And the children don't get to be exposed to hearing conversation or anyone asking them any questions of interest to them. People just move like robots sometimes in the family dynamics, They're there, but they're not there. And that is sad, because I know when I talk to some of my adolescents and my teens, they hump the shoulders and just do they don't respond clearly. Or they say, I don't know. And they know, but they don't know how to communicate clearly. And the respect, there's no respect.
Right. No.
Even when you're a professional, they acted like you're one of their peers.
That's right.
It's a generational thing going on here.
That's right. And you hit the nail on the head there. There's so many of them. It's a respect thing. It's a respect thing. And on the one hand, I say, well, in order to get that respect, because so many of them want respect, they have to give the respect. But some of them don't. They hadn't been taught to do that, because if, let's say, for instance, if you're at school and you get in trouble, and your mother or father comes up there, well, instead of listening first to see what's going on and listen to both sides, they automatically take their child's side and say, tell the teacher they better not do this, you better not say that, you better not put a hand on my child, all this. What is that telling that child? That's telling that child that, well, you know what, no matter what I do, no matter what I say to the teacher or the principal, whoever, my parent is going to come up here and they're going to show these folks, the parent is not, that's doing that child such a disservice. And see, then we see that when, let's say, for instance, kids are out at some type of, let's say the football game is in and they're hanging all out and talking and laughing. Well, there are certain places that they can't hang out after a certain time. Well, then they start getting rowdy, maybe. Well, then what happens then? The police has to be called. Then when the police is called, the police gets out there, and the police says, okay, it's time to disperse, it's time to go. You all got to go. Well, instead of some of them getting in their cars and leaving, they're still hanging around. They're still staying around. I just had a case last week where and I think these were 2 or 3, these were girls in this particular instance. I'm seeing more of that too. At one time, it used to be more boys acting up, but I'm telling you, I see more girls now. But there were 3 girls, and the officer, because they wanted a trial. They wanted a trial. It was on disorderly conduct, failure to comply. So in other words, they failed to comply with the directives of the officer. And so the officer testified. The officer basically said that, he came on the scene. They were all around, and he tried to get them to leave. Some left, but some remained. And then even one of the females told him she wasn't going nowhere. That's what he said this girl said to him. And so then when it was their turn to give, their side of things, the girl admitted. She admitted, well, yeah, I said I wasn't going anywhere. I mean, because I understand why we had to leave. We wasn't doing anything. We weren't talking. When we weren't arguing, he said we were fighting. We wasn't fighting. Instead of doing exactly what this officer said, because this is what I ended up saying to them. I said, wait a minute, this is an officer. This officer has a gun on him. This is an officer. This is not just a regular old person telling you to go. This is an officer, and you tell this officer, well, I'm not going anywhere, And then the other girl was saying, well, I mean, I didn't go anywhere because I was trying to explain to him, blah, blah, blah. No, that's why I told him, no, it's no time to explain. He didn't ask you to explain anything to him. He asked you to leave because you were not supposed to be there, and yet you stayed. And so this is my point in saying all this. There is a lack of respect, not only for adults, but for authority. And to me, that is the most alarming thing. Because it's sad enough to not have respect for your parents, to not do what they say, to not have respect for teachers and principals. But then a law enforcement officer, I just have I have a huge problem with that. I truly do. And I know, let me say one other thing, because I know that there are good people and bad people in every position. I understand that. There are good judges and bad judges. I understand that. But to ensure that you're not putting yourself in a position where you may later regret. When somebody tells you to do something, it's just better to do it. Why stand there and try to go back and forth with a law enforcement officer? Why do that? That's not ever going to turn out good. And then when they go to arrest them, then they're pulling away. Then what's going to happen next? They're being charged with resisting arrest. And so it's just lack of respect. But one of the things I try to do when they're before me, I try to bring this out, and I try to ask them, I really try to get them to understand why it's very important. And I think with some young people, I probably do get across to them, but I think some is going in one ear and out the other, because at the end of the day, they're not respecting anybody. So it doesn't even matter. Police officers no different to them than anybody else.
You said something, Judge, that really hit home. And then and it also comes from a lot of social media. Mm-hmm. First of all, they don't have the respect. If they don't respect their officer, respect you, they don't respect their parents.
That's right.
Right. That's number one. But a lot of social media is feeding into it. Just like you said, it's good and bad and everything. Mm-hmm. But why take that chance and finding out what is good or bad?
Right.
That's teens here in Clarksville have a curfew. Mm-hmm. All right, they have a curfew. My grandson play AAU basketball, and he knows he has a curfew to be in the house, or he's going to be going downtown talking to the judge. There's no sense of you talking back to that law official. It's easier for you, and it's less expensive. You get some gone and go home as they ask you to. Disperse. Right. Mm-hmm. But social media is now really are. Social media is really playing a part in this today. And we got to be able to teach our kids how to take the bad out of the social media and learn from the bad as well as the good and learn what not to do.
Mm-hmm. And what is social media? We can talk. That's another subject we could talk all night long on, because that's another issue I'm seeing too. So many young people are taking their phones out and recording things that are happening. If somebody's fighting, somebody else is recording, and that's why law enforcement is, that's why they're able to find out like who got into a fight, because on the one hand, I don't know. It's just that it really baffles me how they record somebody fighting, and then this person turns around and says, "Well, yeah, I wasn't fighting, but well, this person was recording you. You already know that." A lot of them get into a fight because they're being recorded. It's like it's even worse because they're recorded.
Self-incrimination.
Yes.
But Judge, you did hit on a valid point when you said when the kids are in school, they have no respect for the teachers or the principals, and their parents run up there and their parents want to get outraged with the teachers and not hear what the teacher has to say or the principal has to say that their child has done. That's teaching that child that I can do whatever if there are no consequences.
Right.
Because mom and dad's going to back me up. That's and right. Mom and dad is wrong for doing that. Because when my mom used to come up to the school, when I back bad, she'll come up there. I don't want to hear nothing at you. I want to hear what the teacher say. I want to hear what the principal say. And then she give me something to think about.
That's right. You can show your child other ways to get, other ways that you care about them. You're not showing that you care about them when you do that, And that's what's really kind of interesting to me too, that some of these same parents who would run up to the school and cuss the teacher or the principal out over something they claim to have done to their child, yet that same parent is not there when it comes to some very important stuff. When that child is before me in court, their parent isn't there. And that's something else that's that's telling. Now I can understand if you're at work, because I know the parents work. But I asked her, I said, well, did your mom know that you were coming today? Did she know you had court today? Yes, where is she? Well, she's at home. Really? But that's what we're dealing with.
Yes, ma'am. We're going to move on, Judge. Because like I said, we can talk about a couple of these subjects for days.
Right.
Okay. How do you deal with your peers, kids coming into your courtroom, and your peers asking you on the side, "Hey, can you look out for my child when it comes to this?"
Coming up. Go ahead and answer, Judge.
Okay. Well, when it comes to my friends, kids, and even if I have a relative that comes before me, I consider that to be a conflict, and so with that, I cannot handle that matter. You all can hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, but I can't handle that matter because I consider that to be a conflict. There's no way I can fairly and impartially handle that particular case. I can't be, because my job is to be fair to both sides, not just one side. I have to be fair to both sides. And so if a relative or one of our friends, kids come before me, then, there's no way I would be able to be fair with that person who they're up against. Let's say even if my friend's child was the victim in a case, and then they're just the defendant, someone who's done something to them. Well, can I be fair to that defendant? No, I can't, because 9 times out of 10, well, probably 10 times out of 10, I'm going to go with, I'm going to be biased. I'm just going to be biased, and so it's a conflict, and not only me for just conscience sake, I cannot do that, but that also goes against our canon rules. Our attorneys have ethical rules, all of us attorneys, because judges are attorneys first and foremost. We have ethical rules that we have to abide by. We have to follow. Some do and some don't. But we all have these rules we have to abide by, and then judges have canons. And those are rules that judges have to abide by, and that's one of the rules that you cannot show any type of any semblance of impropriety. And so if there's a conflict of interest, then there's going to be impropriety if as a judge you decide to stay on that case. So did I answer your question? I believe
you did. And it's some judges that do it and won't recuse themselves from it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's true. And I don't know. And especially if I know in advance, because I know sometimes things happen to where before I know if somebody's before me, I didn't realize they were coming before me. Well, it depends on what the situation is. Let's say, for instance, it may be, if it's a ticket where all they're doing is paying a fine or something, that's different, But if it's something where they have asked to have a trial, then I have to recuse myself. And there have been several times since I've been on the bench where I did not know that this particular person has come before me, even relatives sometimes who come before me. I have to recuse myself. Now, I don't say in open court the reason why, but I do recuse myself, and just said it before the other judge.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna move on to the next question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that there is systematic racism in the justice system of today versus the justice system of yesterday?
Not repeat it for me. I don't think I got the last question I answered was involving people who come before me where I have to recuse myself.
Yes.
Okay.
This is the one we went to.
Systemic racism. I did get it. I did, because I began to answer on that, and I'd say that yes, I believe there still is. You were comparing it to yesteryear, and yes, I still believe there is. It's just on another level, like anything else,
Yes.
Just as there was violence, very violent, heinous crimes 10, 15, 20 years ago, there still are. It's just on a different level. Some are, it's a little bit more sophisticated, but nevertheless, it remains, And again, we can look at what's happening right now, even, in our society, and we know that it still remains. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, until all people start changing their frame of mind,
Mm-hmm.
their way of thinking, and learn from yesterday, because this is a new day. This is a new way of living, a new lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
That problem will be there.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see racism go away, but that's something that will be here after we're gone, because
Mm-hmm.
people don't want to educate themselves or be able to believe in the rights of others.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be another topic coming up all along. I will try to actually get my aunt in, because my uncle was Martin Luther King's first staff writer, and that subject is very, very dear to my heart. When we start
Mm-hmm.
talking about that, racism is here. You're gonna see it in the court system. You're gonna see it on the police force. You're gonna see it in life. You're gonna see it in the supermarket. That's the only time I see when they put racism in front of the actual case of their personal beliefs in front of a case, that no one, I don't care what color you are, will get a fair trial.
Right.
Because their personal beliefs have become their belief.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way they think.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's exactly right. But as judges, we certainly have the responsibility to be fair across the board, no matter who comes before us, no matter whether they're young or old, whether or not they're black, white, or whatever race they are, no matter what disability they may have, no matter what side of the tracks they come from, what social economic level they come from. We have to treat everybody fairly because everybody deserves that. I just had there was a young lady who came in and she's from New York and she was doing a study on domestic violence and how we handle our domestic violence cases and because as we all know, domestic violence month is this month of October. But one of the things that she said to me, and when she said it, well, let me tell you what she said. She said, well, I appreciate. She said one of the things I noticed is that about you is that is the way you respect everybody that comes in your courtroom, no matter who they are. And I was like, oh, okay, well, thank you, I appreciate that. But I'm thinking to myself, wow, it's hard to believe that other judges don't do that, and maybe I guess I'm just naive to that, but I'm certainly a firm believer, and that's the way I was brought up. First of all, I was brought up to treat everybody the same way, to treat everybody the way I want to be treated, and we know we've heard that in our Sunday school lessons and in the Bible, but it is true. We need to treat people the way we want to be treated, and that's whether whatever we say or we do, that's how it should always be. And so whenever somebody comes before me, whether they're young or older, black or white, it's always Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, every single time. Even if it's a 15-year-old, it's going to be Miss So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, just always showing that level of respect and giving everybody a chance to have their say. All those little things that should be done. I guess everybody doesn't do that, but those little things should be done. When we going back to what we said earlier about making sure that even young people understand that they have value and what they're saying, what they believe, what they're thinking. It has value. It's important, and so when we, the more we do that, and the more we try to be fair across the board and treat everybody the same, then I think, people are more likely to, I guess, do the things that they're supposed to do, because they see that you're being fair. Or if you, as a judge, if I give them some type of sentence, but they know that before that, I gave them a chance to say what they had to say and blame to them where they went wrong. And at the end of the day, they're like, okay, well, yeah. But it took having to explain it to them. And to me, that's part of being fair to a person, is getting them to see that I'm not just giving you this fine. I'm not just giving you these days in jail or whatever just to do it, just because I can do it. But this is the reason why. They have to know this is the reason why, more than just because they committed an offense. This is where you went wrong. Because sometimes they do things and they don't think they've done anything wrong. Actually, I had a white female come before me early this week, and it was on I think she wanted a trial on a disregard for traffic device. And in this particular instance, it was a bus where the stop sign had come out. Mm-hmm. And so the bus was like a few lanes over. And so she said she drove past. She said, well, yeah, I saw the sign. She said, but they were like at an intersection. So I'm like, well, surely nobody was coming across that intersection. Surely a child wasn't coming. So I was like, well, ma'am, you don't have the right to rationalize that. That is a law. It's in place for a reason. And so once we went through all of that, then she understood. But had I not done those things, then she probably would feel like, oh, well, the judge is giving me a fine. She didn't want to hear my side. She didn't care. It's not that. I'm going to hear your side, but at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you where you're wrong also. And most people appreciate that when you do that.
Yes. Yeah, and that's part of educating them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Judge, we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to open the floor up to the panel and see if they have any questions for you or anything else they want to say. Miss Paula, you got anything?
No, she covered it quite well. Quite well. Like she said about the crime and stuff and the prejudice stuff, it is in a subtle way. They still hanging us, in a sense, but they do it in a subtle way, through the financial way. The time they serve in prison, it's not equal to the same crime of another nationality or whatever, of the whites and the black. It's different. And a lot of our younger men, our young black males are getting on crimes with marijuana, getting heavy fines when the whites don't do that. And they may be using other drugs, and their family's nowhere near the black child with marijuana. And it's unfair.
It is. And I'm not, and I was just going to speak to that because at one point when I began at the DA's office, the distinction that I would see a lot was between like cocaine and meth, because there were more black defendants who were in possession of cocaine or selling cocaine, and now and it was more whites with the meth, and now it's about the same on both sides, and so but still there are differences. There are definitely differences, but it goes back to fairness, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier about when people see it's what they see. And I'm trying. I know exactly what I was about to say. It's been a long day, but it goes back to fairness, and if we can do that, if we could be fair, and people know what to expect, then people are more likely to do what they need to do,
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Babb, you got anything?
But if he does not. What we want to wrap this up. We're going to thank everybody for their time again. We got some editing that we will do, and hopefully by Tuesday night we will have this out. So be looking forward. Big O Entertainment, Straight Talk No Chaser, with Big O, myself, Avery Orange, and I call him J.O., Johnny O'Neill. And it's a pleasure seeing you all again. We're going to say good night and end the broadcast. Good night.
Okay, good night, everybody.